Hello and welcome. I'm Connor. This is Data Analytics Stuff, where we talk about data analytics. We also talk about some stuff. Last couple weeks, we spent some time building a date dimension table. This week, we're going to get into building out some calculation items in a calculation group for time intelligence using that date dimension table. Calculation groups themselves are very effective so that you do not need to create redundant measures over and over again. You can create some clean, concise calculation items that do the job that maybe 5 to 10 to 20 measures might do. So ultimately, imagine doing something only once rather than having to do it 20 times over. So there's a few things that need to happen to make sure that these calculation groups work properly. Number one, we need to make sure we have the right attributes in our date dimension, in our data model to make them work. We also need to make sure that our model, the relationships that link these tables together, are working and they're set up correctly. And then we also have to make sure that the logic in the DAX within the calculation items is also set up correctly so that it can impact the measures that we're trying to impact. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so we're back in Power Query. And there's two things that we want to do to get us ready to create these calculation items in our calculation group for time intelligence. So we want to create a month index column that'll give us a unique value for every single month throughout time. And then we also want to create a is past column that'll either flag 1 for is past or today, or 0 for the future. So that'll help us create our calculation items as well. So we're going to start by grouping the month year column here. And we're going to group by month year, count, all rows. And then we've got our table collapsed down now into each month year value. So we're going to add a column index from 1. You could start from 0, but we'll do 1. And we've got the index now for each of these values. So let's just expand this out and we'll uncheck that so we don't change the naming of our headers. And we've got our table back now, and we've got our index here where we should see values going past 12, right? So those are unique values now for each month year. So we've got our month index. We also got this extra month year column here, so we'll just get rid of that. And our one over here, we'll make sure we'll rename it. And let's actually name this month index. So we've got our month index column now. And we also want to add a conditional column. And that's the is past conditional column based on the date. Is on or before, and for now we'll just say 12/2/2023. If that's the case, go 1, else 0. So if it's on or before 12/2, give me a 1. If not, 0. So it's not dynamic yet, right? Because we've got a locked-in date up here, but we can make it dynamic by referencing our today step from our applied steps, and now nothing should change. But if we let's look at where the zeros start. We got some current year values there. And you can see the first date is 12/3. So that's tomorrow. And that's exactly how we want it to operate. We'll get rid of that filtered row. And we're just going to change this data type to the whole number. And we're set there. So this was our dev table. We actually have that already created in our date table. I've disabled the load here, so let's just close and apply. And let's take a look at our data model and see what we're working with here, because that is step 2 to this calculation group working right. So we've got a date dimension, store dimension, and product dimension, and then we've got 2 facts, sales and inventory. And you can see here we've got all one-to-many relationships between all of our dimensions and our facts. And with all of them filtering the facts, you can tell with that down arrow there, they're all active, so there's no dotted lines, they're all solid lines. So we're looking good here. And the relationship from our dimension, our date dimension, to our fact, our sales fact, is date. So that's the primary relationship we're going to be using with this calc group. And so we'll go over to model on this data panel, and we're going to create our new calc group. And And that'll actually bring us right into our first calculation item. So let's call that year to date. And actually, before I forget, let's rename this calculation group to C_time intelligence. So that'll be the name of the group that we see in our model now. And we've got our calc items. So let's go back here. We're going to start this one off as year to date. So year to date, we're going to say we'll create a variable for the year where we calculate the max year value right there. And we're going to do this for all dates, the whole date table. And we're going to do it where is past equals 1. Okay, so that's our variable. We're basically saying give me the max year where the date, the is past date is 1. So, and then that max year right now would be 2023. So we'll return this and calculate the selected measure where our year equals our variable year, which is that max year based on the is past filter there. And so that should be our year to date calc group. And we'll actually just copy and paste this, and we'll create another one. And this one we'll have this one be our month to date. So we'll change the variable to the month. And we're just going to change this max value to the month index. And then down here, we'll do the same, where we do month index. So we want the month index to be the max month index. Great, so that's our month to date. We'll copy this one more time. And we're going to make a little bit more of a fun one here, trailing 12 months. And we'll do T12 for this one. Keep that month variable going. So now we're just going to include more months. So we're going to say the month index is in our V month. And we're going to add some more to this, but we'll copy that variable. And so it's going to look funky because we're going to end on 11, which might seem like that's not 12 months, but our 12th month is up here. So this should give us what we need. And oh, we got to close this. I'm like, why am I getting that red there? So we got to close that up. So anything within these months where we're taking the variable and just subtracting 1 for each month we want to include. And so we've got 3 calc items here, which work well. It should work well. Let's see if they do. So let's go to our canvas and let's add a couple tables. Here. And let's just chop them up in different ways just to kind of see the different ways that these calc groups affect our slices of data. So we've got store location. Looks like a good way to chop it up. And then let's do month year so we could show just the dynamic way that these calc groups work. So right now there is no filter on time, right? So we're seeing all the data over time that's included in this data set. So we've got January 2022 to September 2023. So let's see what happens when we add some of these calc groups. And they essentially work as a column that we're dropping on, and we're seeing all the values, but the values have expressions associated with them. So let's try year to date, and you can see now we've got year to date, January through September. We've only got up to September data, so we're not seeing, October, November into December. And then if you look at these other two visuals over here, you could see store location, values are changing to show year to date when selected. Month to date, we actually don't have data for, right? Because it only goes to September. And then trailing 12, well, that actually is the same filter as year to date at the moment, because trailing 12 is actually January to December right now. So if we want to test that, and let's see if that includes December, and it does. So essentially that's working. The other thing we'd want to say here is require a single selection, so that way we're not able to click on multiple of these at a time. And there you have it. We've got our calculation groups that we can use for easy time intelligence filtering in our reporting. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week.